Let's start with a brutal truth. By the time you're 50, you've already made most of the big mistakes you're ever going to make. The question is, have you learned from them? Wisdom, unlike youth, cannot be rushed. It's earned in the slow grind of experience, through sleepless nights, failed deals, broken promises, and the occasional miracle. And if you've survived long enough to collect those scars, congratulations, you now possess the most underpriced asset in the world, judgment. The power of compounding is often discussed in financial terms: money earning interest upon itself, growing quietly in the background while you sleep. But there is another form of compounding far more potent, and it doesn't show up on a balance sheet. It's the compounding of wisdom. Unlike money, which can be lost overnight, wisdom deepens with time, experience, and reflection. After 50, this kind of compounding becomes your greatest asset, because you finally possess what no young person, no matter how ambitious or intelligent, can truly have: perspective. Wisdom compounds when you begin to see the repeating patterns of life and stop mistaking them for surprises. You've watched markets rise and crash, relationships form and fracture, trends explode and fade. You understand now that the world moves in cycles, not straight lines. Each mistake made in your 20s and 30s becomes a dividend of insight later in life, provided you had the humility to learn from it. Every regret, every misstep, every painful lesson carries a return if you allow it to refine your judgment instead of poisoning your optimism. When you were younger, intelligence seemed to matter most. You thought the clever person, the one with quick answers and flashy degrees, would win the game. But time teaches that temperament beats intellect. Patience outlasts brilliance. The older investor, the seasoned businessperson, or even the wise parent learns that success is not about predicting the future, it's about surviving it. Wisdom is the ability to endure without losing faith, to stay calm when others panic, and to remember that most crises are temporary while most mistakes are permanent. The compounding of wisdom begins the moment you start filtering your decisions through experience rather than impulse. You stop chasing every opportunity that crosses your path and start asking better questions. Do I really understand this? Is this consistent with what's worked before? What are the unseen risks? You no longer need to prove how smart you are. You want to prove how steady you can be, and that change of focus from ambition to discernment is what accelerates the growth of your inner capital. Over time, wisdom compounds because it feeds on itself. Each correct judgment reinforces your confidence, while each wrong one refines your caution. You learn to delay reactions, to wait a little longer before deciding, because you've seen how quickly emotions can destroy rationality. You recognize that the biggest danger to wealth, health, and happiness is not the external world, it's your own behavior when the pressure rises. Wisdom turns that awareness into discipline. You become slower to anger, quicker to forgive, and more skeptical of both euphoria and despair. There's also an emotional dimension to this compounding process. After 50, you begin to understand what truly matters. You stop confusing busyness with purpose. You realize that peace of mind, good health, and meaningful relationships produce a far higher return than another zero on a portfolio statement. The younger version of you sought excitement. The wiser version seeks stability. You recognize that calm, not chaos, is where the best decisions are made. The same principle that governs great investing, compounding quietly over time, governs great living too. Every decade gives you more data about what works. You notice that honesty, patience, and simplicity never go out of style. You notice that the people who endure are not the loudest, but the most consistent. You see that small acts of prudence, repeated daily, outperform the sporadic bursts of genius that others chase. This realization frees you from the exhausting cycle of competition. You no longer need to outshine anyone. You simply need to outlast the noise. Wisdom compounds best in silence. This kind of compounding also has a remarkable side effect. It attracts trust. People begin to seek your counsel not because you promise easy answers, but because you have lived through enough uncertainty to speak with calm authority. Your measured words, your ability to admit what you don't know, your refusal to be swayed by emotion, these traits compound your influence. Just as interest builds on interest, respect builds on restraint. By being the one who remains grounded while others drift, you become a quiet magnet for credibility. The truth is, Wealth can amplify who you are, but wisdom defines who you become. And unlike financial capital, it cannot be stolen, taxed, or inflated away. It grows even in downturns because adversity is its fertilizer. Every loss carries a seed of understanding if you're willing to harvest it. Every disappointment tests your philosophy and either breaks it or strengthens it. Wisdom compounds not by avoiding pain, but by converting it into insight. So, while others chase new ways to double their money, the wise seek new ways to double their understanding. They know that money without wisdom is temporary, but wisdom without money can still create prosperity. The compounding of wealth might make you rich. The compounding of wisdom makes you free. And freedom, the ability to think clearly, act decisively, and sleep peacefully, is the ultimate dividend of a well-lived life. The most powerful word in the vocabulary of a wise person is not yes, but no. It takes a lifetime to learn that saying no is not about arrogance or laziness, it's about discipline, clarity, and self-respect. In youth, the world tells you to say yes to everything, every opportunity, every social event, every investment, every collaboration. You fear that by declining you'll miss out. But with time, you begin to see the truth. Most of what the world offers is noise disguised as opportunity. The discipline of saying no more often is not about closing yourself off from life. It's about opening yourself to what actually matters. When you are young, saying yes feels like progress. You believe that every door must be opened, every idea must be pursued. But after 50, experience has taught you a brutal but liberating truth. The more you say yes, the more scattered your energy becomes. Every yes is a withdrawal from the limited bank account of your time. The older you get, the more precious those withdrawals become. You realize that your time is your ultimate form of capital, far scarcer than money, far more valuable than attention. And like any scarce resource, it must be allocated carefully. Saying no is hard because it goes against your conditioning. You want to be agreeable, helpful, optimistic. You've spent decades proving your capability, your reliability, your relevance. But there comes a point where continuing to say yes becomes self-sabotage. You spread yourself so thin that you no longer do anything well. You end up running on the treadmill of obligation, busy, exhausted, but strangely empty. The discipline of saying no breaks that treadmill. It forces you to define what's truly essential and discard the rest. The mature mind understands that every yes carries an invisible price tag. If you say yes to one project, you are saying no to rest. If you say yes to one investment, you are saying no to liquidity. If you say yes to one social obligation, you are saying no to time with your loved ones. Life is a constant negotiation between what's urgent and what's important, and wisdom is knowing which deserves your time. After 50, the cost of distraction grows too steep. You don't have decades to recover from bad decisions anymore. You must protect your attention like a fortress and guard your calendar as fiercely as your capital. The discipline of saying no is also the discipline of focus. You learn that deep work, deep thinking, and deep relationships all require space that cannot exist when you're suffocating under commitment. You begin to value quiet mornings, slow conversations, and uninterrupted stretches of thought. You stop confusing motion with momentum. The truth is, most progress happens not by adding more, but by subtracting what doesn't serve you. The older you get, the more you understand that simplicity is not a luxury, it's a survival strategy. There is also a moral clarity that comes with saying no. You no longer chase approval. You no longer accept deals that violate your principles just because they look profitable. You stop associating with people who drain your energy or distort your integrity. You stop being afraid to walk away. There's freedom in that, a kind of calm confidence that only comes when you've learned that missing out is not failure, it's focus. The world rewards those who can filter noise, who can say, "This is not for me," without guilt or hesitation. Great investors, great thinkers, and great leaders all share this trait. They are selective. They understand that opportunity is infinite, but attention is not. They say no to nearly everything so they can say yes to the right thing. They wait patiently, sometimes for years, for a clear hell yes before committing. The discipline to reject what is merely good in pursuit of what is truly great is what separates wisdom from impulse. The more you master this, the more your decisions align with your deepest values. Saying no is also an act of humility. It's the admission that you can't do it all, that your resources are finite, and that your best work requires concentration. The young see saying no as limitation, the wise see it as power. Every no sharpens your identity. You no longer measure success by how much you do, but by how well you choose. You begin to value peace over prestige, clarity over chaos, and purpose over popularity. There's a quiet dignity in restraint. To say no calmly and confidently without explanation or apology is one of the surest signs of maturity. It shows that you no longer need validation. You've seen enough to know that most of what looks urgent will not matter in a year, and what truly matters rarely demands urgency. The discipline of saying no more often is the art of protecting the finite against the infinite, the meaningful against the meaningless. It's how you reclaim your time, your focus, and your sanity in a world that profits from your distraction. And in the end, it's how you make your final decades not just longer, but sharper, calmer, and infinitely more alive. The foundation of every enduring success is not intelligence, strategy, or luck, it's character. Money comes and goes, markets rise and fall, opportunities appear and vanish. But character and reputation are the bedrock that outlast every storm. You can rebuild a fortune after losing it. You can recover from a business failure or a wrong bet in the market. But once your reputation is destroyed, there is no insurance policy, no interest rate, and no time horizon long enough to fully repair it. Investing in character and reputation over everything else is not idealism. It's rationality of the highest order. After 50, you begin to understand that the compounding power of character surpasses any financial return. In youth, people chase quick wins, clever deals, and flashy accomplishments. They want to be known as successful. But wisdom teaches you that being trusted is infinitely more valuable than being admired. Trust, once earned, becomes the currency that buys opportunity, respect, and peace of mind. It doesn't depreciate, it appreciates every time you make a principled decision, even when no one is watching. Character is built in private but revealed in crisis. When the tide goes out, as it always does, you see who was anchored in integrity and who was floating on image. Every ethical shortcut taken for convenience, every promise broken for profit, every compromise made for applause, all of it compounds too, but in the opposite direction. It builds a debt that must eventually be paid in the currency of regret. The older you get, the more you realize that nothing you can buy is worth the cost of losing your name. Reputation is a long-term investment in trustworthiness. It doesn't demand perfection, it demands consistency. People forgive mistakes when they believe your intentions are clean. They remember how you treated them when you had the power to treat them badly. They notice whether you kept your word when no one could enforce it. Over time, these small moments form the invisible brand of your character, and that brand determines the quality of your life far more than your bank balance. The tragedy of many talented people is that they focus on looking impressive instead of being reliable. They chase cleverness instead of credibility, but cleverness fades, character compounds. Every time you tell the truth when a lie would be easier, every time you do the right thing when the wrong thing would be faster, every time you choose principle over profit, you're reinvesting in a kind of wealth that no market crash can touch. And that, over decades, becomes a fortress. Character is not built by reading moral quotes or attending seminars on leadership. It's built by habit, by thousands of small, disciplined choices to stay honorable in a world that rewards shortcuts. It's about how you treat people who can't benefit you, how you react when you're wrong, how you behave when success tempts you to arrogance. The person who builds character patiently, year after year, ends up with something rare and powerful, a reputation that opens doors faster than ambition ever could. Reputation is slow to earn and quick to lose. It takes decades to build and a single bad moment to destroy. That's why wisdom demands vigilance. You can't outsource integrity, and you can't fake it for long. The market may not always reward honesty immediately, but over time, it punishes dishonesty with brutal precision. Every great investor, leader, and builder who lasted across generations understood this truth. It's better to lose money than to lose credibility. because money can be replenished, but credibility, once drained, is gone for good. As the years pass, you begin to see that character and reputation are not moral ornaments. They are practical tools. They simplify life. When people know your word is solid, they don't need contracts thicker than novels. When your name stands for fairness, opportunities find you without effort. When others know you won't betray trust for gain, they bring you into circles where the real deals happen. The quiet, high-trust environments where fortunes are made and legacies are secured. There's a deep satisfaction in living a life that doesn't require editing. When you invest in character, you sleep well. You don't have to remember which lie you told or which mask you wore. Your reputation becomes your shield, protecting you when things go wrong and magnifying your credibility when things go right. That's a form of leverage no amount of capital can buy. In the end, your reputation becomes your legacy. Long after your portfolio is forgotten, your conduct remains the story people tell about you. It's what your children inherit and your colleagues remember. You can't put it in a will, but it outlives every financial statement. Investing in character and reputation is not just about being good. It's about being wise enough to know that in the grand balance sheet of life, integrity yields the highest return. There comes a point in life when you realize that complexity is not sophistication. It's confusion dressed up as intelligence. The older you get, the more you see that most problems in life, business, and investing are made harder by the human tendency to overcomplicate the obvious. The joy of intelligent simplicity is the discovery that clarity is power, that understanding something deeply is infinitely more valuable than juggling many things shallowly. Simplicity is not the absence of depth, it's the elimination of noise. It's the deliberate act of stripping life down to what actually works and ignoring everything that doesn't. In youth, complexity feels like achievement. You want to appear knowledgeable, impressive, indispensable. You clutter your days with meetings, goals, side projects, and obligations, believing that motion equals progress. But with time, you learn that complexity is just another form of inefficiency, a way of hiding the fact that you don't yet understand what truly matters. Simplicity, by contrast, requires courage. It means choosing clarity over confusion, focus over frenzy, and humility over vanity. It takes experience to know that the simplest plans are often the hardest to design, and the most effective systems are the ones that look almost too obvious to be valuable. The joy of intelligent simplicity lies in how it liberates the mind. When you reduce unnecessary clutter, mental, emotional, or financial, you create space for better thinking. A simple life is not an empty one, it's a concentrated one. The fewer distractions you have, the more depth you can bring to the things that matter most. Whether it's investing, relationships, or personal growth, the principle is the same: depth beats breadth. The wise don't chase 100 opportunities. They study a few until they understand them so well that mistakes become rare. Simplicity doesn't come from knowing less. It comes from knowing what to ignore. In investing, simplicity often beats brilliance. The great fortunes are built not by those who chase complicated formulas, but by those who understand a few timeless ideas and apply them with discipline. The mathematics of compounding, the psychology of patience, the logic of value, all of it is simple to describe and difficult to practice. The market constantly tempts you to complicate things, to believe that success requires secret formulas or exotic strategies. But over decades, the truth becomes clear. Those who survive are not the ones with the most complex systems, but the ones who stick to principles simple enough to be executed without emotion. The same is true in life. The people who seem happiest and most at peace are rarely the ones with the most possessions or the busiest calendars. They are the ones who have mastered the art of subtraction, removing the unnecessary to make room for what brings genuine satisfaction. They understand that time is the real currency and attention is its most valuable denomination. Every new obligation, every new gadget, every new distraction carries a hidden cost. The pursuit of simplicity is the decision to stop paying that price. Intelligent simplicity also requires discipline. It means refusing to be seduced by noise, fashion, or trends. It means saying no to what looks exciting but doesn't align with your values. It means trusting that long, Long-term consistency beats short-term cleverness. In a world obsessed with doing more, the simple person has the audacity to do less, but better. The more you focus on what you understand, the fewer mistakes you make, and the less energy you waste correcting them. Simplicity multiplies efficiency, and efficiency compounds into freedom. Simplicity, however, is not stagnation. It's refinement. It's what happens when experience teaches you which details matter and which can be ignored. Think of a master craftsman. Every motion is precise, every tool chosen for purpose. Nothing is wasted. That is intelligent simplicity, the elegance of mastery that comes only from years of deliberate focus. The same principle applies to decision-making. The older and wiser you become, the more you realize that the best answers tend to be the simplest ones hiding in plain sight. Complexity impresses crowds, simplicity builds legacies. There's a quiet joy in living simply. You think more clearly, sleep more peacefully, and act more deliberately. You stop chasing the illusion of more and start appreciating the beauty of enough. You see that happiness doesn't come from addition but from alignment. From having your actions, values, and goals pointed in the same direction. The clutter of life, whether it's material, mental, or emotional, serves only to distract you from that alignment. The intelligent person clears it away, not because life is small, but because focus makes it bigger in all the ways that count. In the end, intelligent simplicity is a philosophy of both efficiency and elegance. It's about doing less, but doing it well. It's about thinking deeply before acting, choosing quality over quantity, and embracing clarity over chaos. The joy of simplicity is not in minimalism for its own sake, but in the freedom it creates. It gives you time to think, space to breathe, and peace to enjoy what you've built. It allows you to see that the best things in life, the trust of others, the love of family, the satisfaction of good work, require no complexity at all. They only require presence, integrity, and a mind uncluttered by nonsense, and that, after all the striving and noise, is the truest form of wealth. Legacy is one of those words that people often misunderstand. It's not about statues, awards, or buildings with your name carved into the wall. True legacy is quieter, humbler, and infinitely more enduring. It's about planting trees whose shade you will never sit under. It's about investing your time, wisdom, and kindness into people and ideas that will outlive you. The older you get, the clearer it becomes that a meaningful life is not measured by how much you've accumulated, but by how much you've contributed. The pursuit of legacy is not a sprint for recognition. It's a marathon of responsibility, integrity, and generosity. When you're young, you think in terms of achievement, how high you can climb, how much you can earn, how many goals you can check off. But as the years pass, the question shifts from what can I get to what can I give. You start to see the limits of material success. You realize that no matter how much you own, time remains undefeated. Legacy becomes your answer to mortality. It's your way of saying, I may not be here forever, but something good I've done will be. It's the desire to leave fingerprints of wisdom, courage, and kindness on the world, even when you're no longer around to see the impact. The irony is that legacy cannot be built by people obsessed with legacy. It's built by those who focus on doing their work well, by those who care more about substance than applause. A great teacher doesn't lecture about legacy. They pour their heart into shaping young minds. A parent doesn't speak of being remembered. They simply love, guide, and sacrifice for their children. Legacy is the natural byproduct of living with purpose. It's not something you chase. It's something you earn through consistency and sincerity. To plant a tree you'll never sit under is to embrace patience and humility. It's the acceptance that your role is to contribute to a story much larger than yourself. You may not see the fruits of your labor, but you trust that they will appear. You mentor the next generation, even though their success might surpass your own. You build foundations strong enough for others to stand on, not because it benefits you, but because it's the right thing to do. True legacy is not about ownership, it's about stewardship. You're not the hero of the story, you're the bridge for others to cross. At some point in life, you realize that money and power are temporary currencies, but influence built on principle endures for generations. The lessons you pass on, the integrity you model, and the compassion you demonstrate ripple outward in ways you can't measure. Maybe it's a young colleague who remembers your advice decades later. Maybe it's a child who learns kindness from the way you treated others. Maybe it's a community that thrives because of a decision you made long ago. These invisible ripples become your true biography, written not in books, but in the hearts of people you've touched. Legacy is also an exercise in humility because you're no longer the main beneficiary of your actions. You're investing in outcomes you may never witness. It's the ultimate test of faith, to do something meaningful without the need for recognition. The selfish mind asks, "What's in it for me?" The wise mind asks, "What will endure after me?" When you plant that metaphorical tree, you acknowledge that life's greatest rewards are often delayed, sometimes beyond your own lifetime. Yet, that's what makes them profound. You stop living only for your own comfort and begin living for continuity, for impact, for meaning. There's also a deep peace in knowing that legacy isn't about perfection. You don't need to have lived flawlessly to leave something valuable behind. In fact, your mistakes, if met with honesty and humility, become part of your legacy too. They teach others what not to do, how to endure, and how to recover. Legacy is not about appearing extraordinary. It's about being authentically human and leaving behind lessons from both triumphs and failures. People remember sincerity far longer than they remember brilliance. In the end, legacy is built in moments, not monuments. It's in the conversation that changed someone's path. It's in the quiet example of integrity when no one else was watching. It's in the decision to mentor, to forgive, to share knowledge without keeping score. Every act of generosity, every display of patience, every time you choose principle over ego, you are planting seeds. You may not see them grow, but others will live in their shade. That is the quiet miracle of a life lived with purpose. You become part of something enduring without even trying to claim it. To plant trees you'll never sit under is to finally understand the difference between success and significance. Success ends with you. Significance begins when you're gone. The world doesn't remember those who collected the most. It remembers those who gave the most. Legacy is not about being remembered. It's about ensuring that something worth remembering continues. It's the wisdom passed down, the kindness multiplied, the truth preserved. And when your time comes to step away, you'll find comfort in knowing that you've done what truly matters. You've added roots to a future you may never see, but one that's stronger because you were here.